Okay. We have a lot of questions from listeners as well through the chat room, and some other listeners have contacted me. One is hold on, let me get that question up. Okay. What are your views on Hugo Chavez? Is he as bad as our media portrays him, and do you believe that the recent free trade agreement with Colombia was a response to his presence?
Hugo Chavez is democratically elected. There's no question in my mind about that. I spent a lot of time in Latin America, all over Latin America. I speak Spanish fluently. I just came back. Even opposition leaders who are very opposed to Chavez will admit that he's been elected democratically, and he's won referendum after referendum. He lost one big one, and he gave into it in a democratic way. Our press very, very much misrepresents him when they refer to him or suggest that he's a dictator. He's not. He's democratically elected. I personally have a lot of problems with his rhetoric, with his style, with his demeanor, but we can't deny that he's had a major influence on Latin America. He was the first of 9 presidents who have been elected since then, and since he fought off the CIA coup in 2002, 8 other presidents in Latin America, 8 other countries have elected presidents in democratic elections who are saying no to exploitation. They're saying, we don't want your foreign aid from the United States, but we don't want you exploiting our resources anymore. We want to be able to use our resources to pull our own people up by their bootstraps. 9 countries in total, representing more than 80% of the population of South America, have elected these kinds of presidents. And big corporations in the United States don't like this. And Chavez is really the motivating force. He's what made this possible in Latin America. So they're very strongly opposed to him, want to get him out. Uribe, the president of Colombia, is one of the few who's not among this group of 9 that I mentioned. And he is the biggest puppet Washington has today in South America. And so we struck this free trade agreement with Colombia because it's to the advantage of our big corporations, and it will be to the advantage of the oligarchies in Colombia. Uribe, his family, and his cronies, who will very much gain from this, but the Colombian people do not benefit from free trade agreements any more than any of the other countries do, because the fact of the matter is free trade agreements are exactly the opposite of that. They're very, very weighted to help big multinational corporations, not local people. This is not about, they're not about free trade at all. They're about getting these countries to accept the fact that we have heavy, heavy subsidies in the United States for a lot of our agricultural industries.
Also, Hugo Chavez, he is democratically elected, but a lot of his policies seem to be very authoritarian. And do you think this is out of a need that he feels he has to protect his country from infiltration by foreign interests?
I don't know which policies are authoritarian. He's taken all of them to referendums, as far as I know. I mean, there's certain details. The most recent controversial one was when he announced that he was going to reorganize his intelligence systems, and he said he was doing that because of the threat from the U.S., the CIA, and others, that he needed to have a more efficient intelligence service. He was highly criticized for that in Venezuela as well as other places, that he was exercising too much authoritarian control, and immediately he cut back. He stopped. He rescinded. He did not go ahead with that. So I have not seen the man as being authoritarian. His people, he takes most of the things through referendums. There's a lot of misinformation said in the United States. For example, we were told in the United States that he took away the license of a television station. The fact of the matter is, this television station back in 2002, when a coup was fomented against him, went public calling for the overthrow of him, a democratically elected president. Now, if a television station in the United States openly called for the overthrow of our president, let's say Bush, they would immediately lose their FCC license. That's illegal to do in the United States. It's also illegal in Venezuela. They did an illegal act. Their license was not revoked. But 5 years later, when it came up for renewal, the equivalent of our FCC said, well, perhaps the station shouldn't have its license renewed because it did something illegal. The message that we got in the press in the United States was that Chavez was trying to take away the license of the station because it criticized him. It was much more serious than criticism. They did something blatantly illegal. But we get tremendous misinformation, Doug, here about what's going on in Venezuela and throughout Latin America. And I think that's very sad. Like I said, I speak Spanish. I read Spanish newspapers. I travel a lot in those countries. And I'm always shocked when I come home and hear the things that we're saying about things that I know differently about that are going on down there. It's a real campaign here to make people like Chavez and a number of these other presidents look bad.
Yeah, there's a documentary, and people can watch it on Google Video. It's called The Revolution Will Not Be Televised, and they show how that TV station covered what was happening in the country when that coup was being attempted. And one of the things that really hit me was how they showed footage of people firing guns, and they made it appear that Chavez's supporters were sniping against peaceful demonstrators when actually the opposite was happening. And they showed how they played with camera angles, and then they showed the same scenes from other cameras that were there to show how the TV station manipulated that. And I guess I didn't. You're right. We don't get very good coverage of what's happening there, so I didn't get the right idea of what was happening and why Chavez was, as they said, taking over that TV station and things like that. I read recently that he only has a 20% approval rating, and he's coming up on elections again soon. Is that correct information? Do you know?
I doubt it. I don't know for sure. We'll see in the elections. But the fact of the matter is, there's been, I can't remember anymore now, maybe, I think 7 elections or referendums, all of which he's won, and one that he lost. On some very significant constitutional amendments, which he gave into and accepted the fact that he'd lost and went along with the majority, which is a very democratic move on his part. If he's losing popularity, I haven't seen it. When talking to people there, you certainly hear it when you talk to Venezuelans in the United States. And I have many friends who are Venezuelans here who come from wealthy families there who are very, very unhappy with him because he's forced them to pay higher taxes, higher wage rates, et cetera, et cetera. The Venezuelans that are in this country, for the most part, are ones that strongly oppose him. So we hear their viewpoint very, very strongly. But if you go to South America, you hear something very different. The next elections will tell. We'll see how popular he is.
Yeah, I didn't think it was right that he had 20%, because even Bush has about 20% approval rating.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to Venezuela, you go to South America, I think you'll get a very different impression. But again, the elections will probably tell us, and there's every indication that he'll accept them. He has up until now. If he should lose an election and then decide that he's going to not accept that and take over, well, obviously that'll send a very strong message. But he's done nothing in the past to indicate that he in any way would do that or intends to do that.